Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Man Esoteric and our continuing series on the Steam Deck, more importantly what emulators you should be playing and how to get them set up. And I've gotten a metric crap ton of requests to do a Xenia Xbox 360 emulation tutorial video, and that's what we're going to be doing today. But fair warning, this emulator is very early in development. It's not a knock at the emulator whatsoever, but do not expect much out of your Steam Deck if you're using Linux via Proton. I may do, if you guys want to see, a Windows installation tutorial for Steam Deck and run the 360 emulator on that. But for this video, we're taking a look at what it's like to run a Xenia on a standard Steam Deck. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But at the end of this video, you will have the Xbox 360 emulator fully set up, and maybe if you're lucky, you will get some games to run. If we take a look at the GitHub page here, it's going to list all of the information you need for every single emulator that EmuDeck installs, and Xenia does come over with it now. You can manually install this, but I find it an easier format to use EmuDeck. Just be aware that the GitHub page doesn't always have the most current information, because if you scroll down, you just see Microsoft Xbox. There is absolutely no mention of the Xbox 360 whatsoever, so just listen to the information I'm going to give you. You just don't need a BIOS, that's all you really need to know. If we go over to the Xenia page, we Xenia Canary here, you're going to see it's a Windows 7 Plus, that means Windows 7 on build. Linux builds are not currently available, and if you don't know, that's what Steam Deck is using for an operating system. It is not a Windows-based machine, it is its own OS. And if you take a look at all of the different GitHub tickets for issues with games, you are going to see that they are numerous. And again, this is not a knock at the emulator. Emulators take time to mature, it's just very early right now. But taking a look at one game here, Red Dead Redemption, it's almost 8 gigabytes, so when we copy it over to our micro USB drive, your USB thumb drive or whatever, it's going to take a long time to transfer. Even if you do this over FTP on a fast connection, it is not a quick process whatsoever. So here's what I recommend because of the limited compatibility with Xenia. Use your computer and test games that you have dumped from the games you own, of course, and make sure they run. Because right here I'm trying Raider G Noah Massive. I get audio, absolutely no image whatsoever. If I spent the time transferring the 7 gigabytes over for this, I would have wasted a ton of time. Something like Red Dead Redemption, though, does boot on my Windows 10 machine in Xenia, so I know the files are good and I know that I can move them over to my Steam Deck. And be very paying attention to what we're currently looking at right now, this menu, because that is going to become very important when we talk about performance on Xenia when you're using Linux with the 360. But you will see that I'm able to get into the menu, I'm able to get into the game, everything just seems to be working totally fine. And do remember that my tutorials are based on using a USB thumb drive or a micro USB to USB card adapter. You can do the file transfers however you want. I just find this to be the easiest way to do it. And honestly, a lot of people love docking their Steam Deck into the TV as well. I'll leave a link in the description below to the dock that I use. It's not an affiliate link. I don't make any money. I just think it's a good product. But as we move over to the desktop mode in our Steam Deck, we're going to mount and open that card that we just copied the files over. And you'll see in this 360 folder we have Red Dead Redemption. Now moving files over on your EmuDeck installation is a little bit trickier. Remember, as I said earlier, we do not need a BIOS, so you don't have to worry about anything in that folder. But unlike pretty much every other emulator on the EmuDeck and Steam Deck, when we scroll down and go to the Xbox 360 folder, that is not where we put the games. Every other tutorial, if you've watched my tutorials, I'm going to say go into the folder and copy the files over. That is not the case for this one emulator. You'll see we have an Xbox 360 folder, and then we have a ROMs folder. This is nested within, and if you click on readme.txt right here, you're going to see that you place your ROMs here. It's a nested folder, Xbox 360, and then ROMs. That's where you're going to drop those ISO files, or else they will not be registered by Steam ROM Manager or by Xenia proper. It's a little bit of a strange situation. It is a one-off, but just keep that in mind. And this is why we really do test to make sure these game files are good. It was about 9 minutes to the USB thumb drive and about 8 minutes off. Now once we have that game file over, we're going to go back into EmuDeck and we're going to load Steam ROM Manager. Make sure you read that little bit of input notice right there that your controls will quickly change. And the one other thing you need to know is that by default on the parsers, Xenia for Xbox 360, at least in my instance, has been toggled off. Xbox Live Arcade is toggled on, but you need to click that toggle until it turns blue, or else Steam ROM Manager will never look into the Xbox 360 ROMs folder, and it will never actually find the games that you're adding there. hit preview and hit parse, and it's going to take all of the games you have on your EmuDeck installation. And if we go over to categories and scroll down to Xbox 360, you will see we added Red Dead Redemption, and it is going to show up exactly where it is expected. And like pretty much every other popular video game, you're going to have cover art options, and I'm going to scroll over twice to get to this one right here, which I love. Kind of reminds me of the Criterion Collection Blu-rays, and if you do like Criterion, leave me a comment down below because I would be curious. Once you're happy with the art, click Save to Steam. It's going to run through a few things, and then it's going to show you that it is done. You can go ahead and close out of it from there. Now from here, what I want you to do is I want you to go into all applications and scroll all the way down, because don't forget X for Xenia is going to be close to the end of the alphabet, and go ahead and launch it. You're going to see it says Proton, and that's because it's using a translation layer to change the code over from a more Windows format to Linux. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I'm going to keep it simple. Go ahead and click OK. I've reverted my Steam Deck around, but what it's going to do right now is install the Proton translation layer. This may already be done on your Steam Deck, and if it is, Xenia will just launch. If it says trying to install Proton, just go through this process, let it download, and when you relaunch the application a second time, it is going to 100% load up onto your Steam Deck. You're going to see that the options are extremely limited in Xenia. You've got a couple different display options, but otherwise the articulatable changes that you can make to this emulator are very, very minimal. But you will see if we go ahead over to File and we open up our Red Dead Redemption file, we are going to get it to execute on our Steam Deck. Now I said earlier the question is whether or not you really want to play around with Xenia in the first place under Linux, and I'll explain more of that later because it does get very complicated. Another thing you want to check to make sure before you trying to run games is in the Xbox 360 folder under ROMs there's going to be Xenia Canary config. Open that with Kwrite. We need to make sure that it's targeting the Vulkan drivers. So if we go over here and start clicking down, it's not so much a scroll as it is a tap. We need to get to line entry 209. This is basically an INI file that uses different sort of markup language to write out what it needs. If it says GPU equals Vulkan in your file, you're 100% good to go. If it says GPU equals any, you need to type over any and have it say Vulkan, all lowercase. If it does not do that, it's not going to find the display driver. You're not going to get games to boot whatsoever. But even when you do get games to boot, it's not going to mean that they're going to be great to play. If we take a look at the Manage under Xenia here, there's only one hotkey. You press the Steam button, it exits Xenia and goes back to the operating system. And you're going to see here under Special Configurations again, no BIOS file is needed, but it says Xenia is still in an experimental state. Some games may not run or perform well, and that is the absolute truth. But if we go over to the Xbox 360 menu here in our library, we still have another step. We have to hit Start, and then we have to go down to Properties, because we need to tell the Steam Deck that we want to use a compatibility layer to run this game. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything whatsoever. You force the use of a specific compatibility profile, and you can choose between Proton 7.0, 8.0, or Experimental. These are the three newest ones, and each Xbox 360 game is going to have different results in different situations. I go to Proton 7.0, I try to launch the game, I get the Steam Gear icon spinning here, and you're very going to quickly see it does not launch the game whatsoever. Let's go back in and switch from Proton 7.0 to 8.0-2 and run the game again. Now you're going to see it does download a little bit of extra content for that specific version of Proton, and after the Steam Gear window here just spins around enough, it's finally going to get into the game. This is not a fast process whatsoever, and even the title screen, this copyright text here, runs substantially slower than Xenia on my Windows PC, or obviously on an original Xbox 360. But you will see that we got Red Dead Redemption to run. We've got these two Rockstar logos here, and as soon as they are done, you're going to see we have an issue. We have a graphics pipeline issue right here. This is the problem with trying to run Xenia on a Steam Deck and not using Windows 10. Even if you use Windows 10, there are still a lot of problems. You'll see here at the same time, the difference in this title screen is once that Rockstar logo goes away, that 2D element, we load into a 3D environment. Some graphics call to Vulkan is failing at that point in time under Proton 8.0. It just does not want to load whatsoever. But let's move back over to our Steam Deck here and we'll try Proton Experimental, because there are a ton of different Proton layers, and like I said, for some games, one will work and one will crash. We get the Rockstar logo, we get back into this area, and we still have the same graphics pipeline issue. If we go over to the desktop mode, you're going to see we have the exact same problem again. If you hit cancel, it's going to bring up a debug menu, and you're going to see exactly what is not working. And here's the deal about Xenia. This used to boot on my Steam Deck. Some update has broken this. I cannot get Red Dead Redemption to play on my Steam Deck any longer. I did this as a two-parter, and in between updates, it just doesn't work. But honestly, a lot of the 360 games are just available on the Steam store, so that's probably going to be a better way to play it. The entire point of this video is I showed you how to get games running. That does not mean many of them are going to run, and it certainly doesn't mean they're going to run very well whatsoever if you get them going. If you really want to see a Windows 10 tutorial, I'll do one about how to install it on the Steam Deck, and a second one with Windows-based emulation. You guys have been asking for a 360 video. I wanted to give you guys what you wanted. I'm just here to tell you that it's probably better to wait to play 360 via Xenia on your Steam Deck. It's just not ready. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.